This is the Doctor, President-elect of the High Council of Time Lords.
I am definitely a madman with a box.
Anyone for jelly, baby?
I'm the Doctor. I'm 904 years old. I'm from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Castabras.
Hey you fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
Hello, I'm Adam.
And welcome to episode 35. You're not going mad. Do not adjust your audio equipment. It's just our snazzy new intro.
We've regenerated.
We have regenerated.
Yeah.
It's our 1 year regeneration.
That's it. Roll your R's, McCoy.
Yeah. You have to do that if you're doing McCoy.
That's it.
Rolling the bloody R's.
So yeah, 10 years of Doctor Who back on our screens and 1 year of the Big Blue Box podcast.
That's gone quick.
Oh, way.
What a journey that's been.
It has, yeah.
Bloody hell, it has been, because the podcast launched just under a year ago, the 31st.
Were you apprehensive when you put that first one out? You know, were you happy with the first one? You got it in the can and thought, right, that's going out? No?
No. I don't think I've ever said this before, but I think I did like 4 takes of that original podcast.
Well, the whole thing?
Yeah.
Blimey.
But honestly, the whole thing, because I was really unhappy because I was so nervous. You know, I'd never done podcasting before, and
yeah,
I was very nervous, and I kept just fluffing words, and I kept rambling as well. I'd say the same sentence like 4 or 5 times within the space of like 2 minutes. I'd mention the same thing loads of times, and I was really nervous and just waffled, and yeah, it was pretty bad. And when I listened, but I haven't listened to it for donkeys, but when I do listen back to that one, it's it's a bit cringeworthy, very nervous, but you know, it's we've all got to start somewhere.
Definitely. I used to do that with Geeks Handbag. I used to record it over and over again because I didn't have any editing equipment. So I used to, whatever I put out was what I filmed. So I used to have to film it all in one take. And just like you, I used to do it over and over again until I got one that I was kind of happy with. And and just have to go with it in the end. So yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, it was it was interesting, but you have to start somewhere.
And look where it's led.
Yeah,
here we are, a year on.
Yeah. So we got some highlights, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, 10 years of Doctor Who. It's incredible actually to look back on 10 years of Doctor Who and just think about all the stuff that's happened over those years, isn't it?
Yes.
What's been your highlights, do you think?
Some highlights for me. Well, obviously, Chris Eccleston and Billy Piper. That's probably the first major one, purely because it was really cool for me to go back and watch all that stuff as a block view and just binge watch the whole lot. That was quite cool for me, because obviously I wasn't watching, as you guys know, I wasn't watching back then, but it was cool to just, you know, buy the box set and think, you know, I'm not really sure, you know, because I was very new to it, and but you know, they made a big stamp on the show. What about you?
Well, there's loads actually. I was just wondering actually, you saying about, because you jumped on board in the sort of Matt Smith era and then went back and watched it all. Is there any other program that's really grabbed you like this? Because obviously you've become massively, you know, invested in Doctor Who. You know, you're really passionate about it. But there must be something about this show that's grabbed you. Is there any other? I mean, I know you love your Marvel and your superheroes, but has any other TV show ever grabbed you in the same way that Doctor Who has?
No.
There is something about it, isn't there?
Yeah. I've obviously been a sci-fi fan for a long time. Well, for as long as I can remember, I've been into sci-fi, but there's nothing on TV, and there hasn't really been anything on TV that's pulled me in and kind of stole my heart, really, the way that Doctor Who has. I can't really think of anything. There was only like stuff from my childhood, which I watched a lot, but that was mainly just like cartoons and stuff. But in terms of like investing this much into a TV show, I can't think of anything that's matched.
There's no other program like it. No. I just you saying about the, you know, when it first came back as well, I do remember seeing all the big billboard posters going into London as I was driving to London, seeing Chris and Billy with the TARDIS doors either side of them. I remember seeing that plastered everywhere before Rose aired and thinking, wow, and their Doctor Who's never been so prominent, or at least not for such a long time, to have these giant billboard posters. And one of the sort of very early highlights for me was the surprise regeneration from Chris to 10, because it's amazing that they managed to keep that under wraps. And I don't think anyone really expected it. I mean, there was a lot of press about Chris leaving after one series very early on. I think even after the first episode aired, so people thought, oh well, he's probably not coming back if they do a second series. You know what I mean? The second series wasn't even commissioned, so we kind of knew Chris might not be staying, but it was still quite a surprise, that first generation, to see him turn into Dave Tennant. And as it was getting towards the end of the episode, I remember thinking, are they really, is he going to regenerate? Is this actually going to happen? And it was a real great moment that when he actually did. I remember actually being proper open mouth thinking, wow, you know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, a new Doctor already. This is incredible. And obviously David Tennant went on to be, a very, very popular Doctor, and one that I like a lot, actually. I do like Tennant.
That's one of my other highlights is, I don't really want to say this on the show, but I think it was the first time that I cried at a TV show.
What, when Tennant?
When Tennant, on his very last thing.
Oh, the last episode.
The
end of time.
The end of time. Yeah, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. It's don't get me wrong. I wasn't sitting there blubbering my eyes out with tissues or anything like that. But a little tear, little chin wobble, and
I was watching that with the biggest David Tennant fan ever. One of my dear friends, Jo, she came round to our house to watch it. And I just thought, I was thinking she's going to be in bits. By the end of this episode, she's going to be in bits. And it was me that was sat there trying not to cry. I was thinking, oh my God, I found it really emotional. And I think she was emotional. She loved David Tennant. And she couldn't imagine that she was going to like Matt Smith. Like, she watched that program where he sort of got announced, and she said, oh, I don't know, he looks weird, he's just not, I don't think I'm going to like him, but obviously I'll give him a chance, because she just loved Dave Tennant. And she loved Matt from, she really, really liked Matt. But
oh, cool.
It was me. I remember sitting on the sofa thinking, really trying to hold back, because I was expecting her to be a blubbering mess, and because she wasn't, I was thinking, I can't be a blubbering mess. But it was more the fact of the thing with Wilf, because I love the character of Wilf, and Bernard Cribbins is another highlight that I've written down, actually, because I've always loved Bernard Cribbins. And I loved having him in the show. I love the interaction between him and David Tennant, and we often talk about that scene in the cafe between the two of them. Yeah, so that, to me, to be honest, it was more that whole bit thing of him and Wilf, was really good.
Yeah, very cool.
Other highlights, Derek Jacobi. I just loved. I loved the episode Utopia. I remember the fantastic buzz to the end of that episode. But shame it was a bit of a letdown the following week, because it really built up to a great cliffhanger, didn't it, of him going into TARDIS and locking 10 out, and 10's face when he gets locked out of the TARDIS, and then him regenerating into John Sim. It was just an incredible end to an episode. And I was getting loads of texts from friends saying, have you watched it yet? Because I was actually out that night, so I watched it the following evening, and it was brilliant. It was just such a great moment. And awesome. I'd have loved to have seen more of Jacobi as the Master, wouldn't you?
Oh, he was very cool. He's such a good actor. Really good actor as well.
Yeah. Oh, he is. He's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would have been cool. That's one of my highlights is John Sim. Is it John Sim or John Sims?
Oh, not sure.
That guy. Yeah.
Yeah, him.
He's another one of these characters that gets a little bit of stick. Obviously, extremely different to how the Masters of old would have been played. But I thought he was quite cool. His borderline. Sort of too eccentric at times, and a little bit OTT. But overall, I thought he was really good. I really liked him as the Master.
I've got slightly mixed feelings. I like John Sim as an actor. He was a bit too over the top for me personally, especially towards the end. But I still enjoy watching him. I still think he gives a very interesting take on the Master. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, it was great having him in it, and I think he worked well with Tennant. You know, the sort of pairing of the two was a good Doctor Master, very good. But I'll tell you another highlight for me as well is K9 and Sarah Jane coming back in school reunion.
Oh, of course, I've got that on mine as well.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. That was just because we all know my feelings on how much I loved K9 as a kid. We don't need to go there again.
Of course.
But to see him back in the program with Sarah Jane, and I think Sarah Jane and Tennant's Doctor was brilliant. Some lovely scenes in that. The first bit where she sees the TARDIS and he stood behind her. Oh, it's just, it's just brilliant. Absolutely, definite highlight.
Yeah, I didn't have K9 written down, but I did have Sarah Jane.
Yeah.
So K9 goes with that. Yeah, very cool. A highlight for me, another one for me, talking of Tennant, actually, just one of the last highlights for Tennant is that scene in, I think it's called the Forest. No. Oh God, you know how terrible I am with names and titles of episodes. The one with River Song in the library, Silence in the Library.
Oh, Silence in the Library, yeah.
And the second one, come on, dude. The second one, it's a two-parter.
Yes, what I've forgotten.
Oh, I'm the same as you. Anyway.
Yeah, that two-parter.
Yeah, the closing scene where he opens the TARDIS with the click of his fingers.
Yeah.
For some reason, that just gets me every time. I just absolutely love it. It's one of my favourite scenes from the newer Doctor Who stuff. I don't know why. It's only really short. It doesn't really mean much. It's not significant, but I don't know.
Just the way the light comes out of it. It's the way it's done, because I like it in the episode. It does great on me that they've used it a bit too much, but I know what you mean. It's brilliant in the episode because it's just the way it's done.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I could go on forever. There's so many brilliant highlights from the last 10 years. I mean, we've been really sort of treated to some great stuff, but there's a couple of other things just quickly reel off to mention, that things that we've had since the show come back, which I think are brilliant. I mean, things like the Ood, new villains and monsters, the Ood, and the Sycorax were great. I love the Sycorax. The face of Bo. Don't we just love the face of Bo?
Yeah.
I loved Davros coming back. I wish he'd been used a bit more effectively, but it's great seeing Davros back in Doctor Who.
Yeah, cool.
The Weeping Angels, again, we haven't had them before, was brilliant. Paul McGann coming back was a definite highlight. Gosh, the buzz when that went on the red button, I mean, literally the internet exploded. Those 10 minutes when that went live, it was everywhere, and I was so glad that I was at home that day, because I could feel the buzz, and literally people couldn't believe it. Even when I was reading it, I was thinking, no way, come on, what?
How many times did you watch it?
Oh, just
Double
over
figures
and
now?
over again. Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, I just literally, and I was trying to record it, like you do. I don't know why, because it's on DVD stuff, but yeah, I couldn't get enough of it. It's fantastic. Captain Jack and Torchwood, of course. This is all new since the show's come back. I mean, I like Torchwood, and Captain Jack's a brilliant character. As I say, I could go on forever. The War Doctor, so many great things that we've had since the show's come back, and a lot of it new. We've seen a lot of great stuff brought back. I mean, the Daleks have been a bit overused, but it's obviously it's great that we've got the Daleks back on the screen, even if some of the stories have been a bit below par. And the Cybermen as well. It's good that we've still got elements of the classic era of the show, coming back on screen.
Absolutely,
so yeah, lots and lots of brilliant stuff. Yeah,
loads of cool stuff.
Yeah.
Just want to reel off a few highlights of our podcast over the last year.
All right,
got a few of those.
Yeah.
We first went out on the 31st of March. Very nervous to going solo, and straight in for episode 2. Had the first interview. That was with Neil Perryman.
Yes, I remember listening to that. Yeah, I bought his book straight afterwards. I actually did. Yeah,
that was really
straight after listening.
That was really good. I remember your tweet as well.
Yeah,
that was very cool. And then fast forward a little bit to the 13th of June, which was episode 6. That was when you were on as a guest host.
That's right. Yeah. What episode was that?
That was episode 6.
What were we reviewing? Why was I on it? Was it Remembrance?
What was it?
I can't remember now. They've all it's all blurred into one.
They've all merged into one, haven't they?
Not to worry.
Yeah. I can't remember what episode that was now. And then episode 10 was an interesting one that went out on the 15th of August. Not for any other reason that you think. it wasn't anything kind of amazing happened on that show. But that was the podcast where I thought about sort of packing it in.
Which one?
Episode 10 that went out on the 15th of August.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just
Why-
thought.
why?
Yeah, well, I thought. Well, I've done 10 episodes now, and is it? Am I connecting with people? Because I was getting some good feedback, which is cool. But there's always that element of self-doubt, I guess. And I was thinking, am I? Because I didn't just want to sit in front of a mic and waffle about Doctor Who that people didn't want to listen to. Because there's, at the time there were some very cool Doctor Who podcasts already. And there still is, and I thought, am I? And it wasn't. It was never a case, and never has been, and never will be a case of competing with other podcasts or anything like that at all. It was just a case of, am I? Is my voice? Do people want to, hear that? And or is it just rubbish? Is it just my own selfish reasons for doing it? But yeah, so episode 10 was interesting because I thought this could be a short and sweet run of a podcast.
No, it's interesting actually because I know exactly where you're coming from, and I was talking with this with Cameron, Blog to Who. He's getting a lot of mentions lately. We're going to have to start charging. But we were talking about this because we were saying I listen to a lot of podcasts and I watch a lot of YouTube as well, and I really enjoy what I listen to and watch. And very often I'll listen to it and that's it, and then I'll be doing something. So you don't always comment or give feedback, even though you've really enjoyed something. And you sort of forget that the person at the other end, doesn't know that. So you like you said, sometimes even though someone's listened to something and really loved it, you don't realise because they haven't sort of given any feedback. And it's something we all do a lot. So I can imagine where you're coming from, because I was listening to, I'm not just saying this, listeners, and Gary knows, I think I used to tweet you. I listened to you right from the beginning, and I always enjoyed listening to it, and I think I did tweet you a few times, but not every time. Do you know what I mean? And you don't always sort of let people know that you're enjoying or liking something, because you kind of in your head just assume that they realize you're listening or whatever. So yeah, I do know what you mean. Yeah.
So it was kind of shaky ground for a minute, but I'm totally glad that that I carried on and got you on, because it's just so cool. Just like when we ask people for feedback on the episodes that we're going to review and just general stuff and reviews, and the iTunes reviews as well have been really nice, and we've had some really cool stuff. So I love it. So I'm glad I didn't jack it in. 24th of October, episode 15. That was when you came on as permanent co-host.
Woohoo!
Which was awesome. And then this year, February, we had another interview. That was with Andy Frankham-Allen.
Yeah.
Which was a really good interview. The author of the Lethbridge Stewart book.
Him and Gary have become BFFs.
BFFs on Twitter, yeah, Mr. Andy. And and then just fast forward a little bit more to the 25th of Feb as our first commentary episode, which was the 11th hour.
That's right.
Which was great fun. Yep.
That was good fun, yeah.
Yeah, and that episode that you came on as a co-host, that was in fact Remembrance of the Daleks.
I thought it might have been. Yeah, I had a feeling it was. I think I had to come in to fight its corner.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I was needed. Yeah.
Yeah. So so some really cool moments from the show over the last year, and I want to say a huge thank you, not to the makers of Doctor Who, not to the actors or anybody. I just want to say a huge thank you, first of all, to you, Adam. Oh. Because it's such a great. Honestly, I'm not just saying this, and a lot of people do say this. They're like, yeah, but it really is like a highlight of my week, sitting down to record the show, because it's just such good fun to chat Doctor Who, because something that we're very passionate about and we love. It's very cool to sit down and just talk about Doctor Who, have a little debate on it, and interact with our listeners and stuff. So first of all, thank you, Adam, for jumping on board. It's been, the show literally wouldn't be the same if you weren't on it with me. Well, I don't think it would be what it is now.
Oh, cheers, man. No, I appreciate it, and I feel the same.
And I'd like to thank all of our listeners. It really is. We don't do it for anyone's benefit other than the listeners. We don't just sit here and talk into nothingness to nobody. It's really cool that we get the feedback from you guys, and you're liking the show, and when you jump on Facebook and Twitter and tell us what you think about, like I said, the review episodes, we tell you, and then you immediately jump on. You're like, yeah, I like it, or I don't like it, and it literally is just for you guys. We don't do it for the fun of it. It's we do it because we want to share with you guys our thoughts and our our love. So yeah, thank you very much. It's all for you guys. We love you guys.
It is. It's a real labour of love. We were saying just before we started recording, actually, that we've got a real good sort of hardcore base of followers and people who listen to the show. And yeah, the interaction that you give with us is fantastic. So yeah, that's, like you said, that's the reason we enjoy doing these podcasts so much, because if we could get paid for it and do it for a living, we would. But we do it for love, because it is just, yeah, it's great fun, mate. I echo that 100%.
Cool. And we've got some great stuff coming up in the future. So it's only going to be... only going to be better from here on in.
Onwards and upwards, yeah.
Indeedy.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to wipe a tear away there.
Yeah, I will. Just go a swig of water.
Yeah. So I think we're ready to land and get cracking on with the news.
Yeah, well, so you've been landing for a year now, so you should have mastered it by now, I reckon.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm going to get it the right way round this time as well.
Okay. Superb. That's better.
That sounds better.
That's much better. Yeah.
Much better. So let's crack on. Newsy stuff. First of all, another award for Doctor Who. Doctor Who wins a lot of awards, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, it really does.
Not just for the biggies, not like the big ones like the television awards where like the leads are up for like best actor or the show's up for like best whatever. Quite a lot of the time, a load of stuff that you wouldn't realise, is up for a lot of awards across many different subjects. But so the Horror Channel, they've won an award for their really cool graphics and animation for the classic Doctor Who that's been running, I think, for about a year now, hasn't it? Or maybe a bit less?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, just over, I think. Yeah.
Oh, just over, yeah. And for those who have not seen it, it's those really cool kind of... it's kind of weird in a way, because the Doctor's faces have got there's no features on the face, but the way that they've done the costumes, they're all in like this dark blue and red, and they've accented every classic Doctor's costume quite well, and it's the little animated shorts that they do on the Horror Channel are really good. So this was for the I've not heard of this one before, but it's the Promax BDA Europe Awards apparently.
All right, bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, this took place in Germany last week, and so they scooped that. It was for design, general image program design package, if that means anything.
Yeah.
But no, it's really cool, because I think I mentioned this on the show. They look really cool, and the kind of style that they've got these, especially in the animated adverts and the little trailers and stuff. They just look awesome. The style is so cool. So I'm glad they've scooped that.
Yeah, I mean now it's on Freeview and I can actually see it. On my TV. I have to say they're brilliant, and they're so simple as well. It's a really nice, clean, simple design. I do really like it. There's one where they have the sort of graphic of the TARDIS and the windows sort of go across it. I can't really explain it. It's such a simple little graphic, but it's really visually brilliant. Yeah. So I do think they deserve it. It's really good. Yeah,
and like you say, it's on Freeview now, which apparently is on channel 70.
It Freeview. Is, yeah.
And that's just exploded. I think when they announced it was on Freeview, was it 2 weeks ago, something like that? All I've seen on Twitter is people saying catching up with Classic Who on Horror Channel.
I've been watching loads. I've got them all on DVD, but I love watching them on live TV. I just love having it on my television. It's driving my other half mad because it's on all the time. But I mean, Legopolis was on last night. I was loving it.
Yeah, I saw some people tweeting. Yeah, it seems to have gone down a treat. Loads of people have.
Great.
Yeah, it's very well cool. So well done to the Horror Channel for scooping that. Well deserved, that one.
So well done, guys. That's cool.
Well done.
So here's one for you, Gary, because you like your games. I'm not a gamer. I'm so bad at games. But this looks great. Basically, to mark the 10th anniversary of the relaunch of Doctor Who, the hit mobile game Doctor Who Legacy, they're releasing a new adventure for it called Bigger on the Inside. I think this is available from the 26th. So depending on when you're listening to this, it should be available, obviously, to mark the 10th anniversary. So that makes sense. But it looks cool, doesn't it, mate? I mean, I'm loving the look of the beast. They've got a graphic of the beast creature from the Satan Pit. He looks good.
Yeah,
So,
it does look
yeah.
really cool. It's we mentioned.
Have you got this game?
No, I'm going to grab it later. But there's
All right.
there's a game that we mentioned, like a small indie game that a couple of guys had made in exactly the same style. This kind of retro 8-bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now you mention it, yeah.
So it's quite common, and for some reason, Doctor Who just looks really good in this style.
It does.
Yeah, but yeah. So those of you that play the Doctor Who Legacy game, which is huge. I was reading on here earlier that they've got nearly 2 million downloads
Oh,
for
wow.
that game now, which is awesome. So
Is it free or do you have to pay? I haven't even. I might get this.
no, it's completely free, mate. I think
I thought so. Yeah.
there are some. Don't quote me on this, 'cause I haven't played it in a little while, but there are possibly some in-app purchases on it.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
Maybe not. Don't quote me on that, but essentially, no, it is free. And
I will download it. The only reason I haven't downloaded it thus far is literally because I am so bad at playing games and I lose interest really quickly. I'm just, as soon as I die, I just switch it off. But it does look good. I think it's definitely worth a download.
yeah, and this one looks really cool as well. It's called Bigger on the Inside.
Yeah.
So, yeah, look out for that one. It should, like you say, Adam, it should be available right now if you're listening to this.
Yep.
And another award.
More awards.
More awards, yeah.
Keep them coming.
Keep 'em coming, yeah. So this is for the Cardiff Life Awards, which is kind of it's kind of more of a businessy kind of, not political, but like a business council kind of Welsh Cardiffy thing. It's not really about entertainment as such. It's more about tourism, I guess, and business stuff for the town. But yeah, so the Doctor Who Experience has been awarded Best in Leisure and Tourism, which is really good because I think it's probably the best thing in Cardiff.
Yeah, you've been, haven't you?
Yeah,
You've
a
been.
couple of times now. Yeah, I'm not,
Yeah.
and I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean like in terms of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's the best thing to do if you're, you know, geek stuff to do in Cardiff.
And they keep adding to it as well, don't they? That's what I like. So if you have been once, chances are the next time you go, there'll be new stuff there and stuff you haven't seen because they do keep updating it and changing it, don't they? So I really want to go.
Yeah, it's very cool. We still might possibly, potentially, maybe do a podcast meetup there.
That'd be cool.
Because we did speak about that, but we'll have to sort that out. But that'd be cool just to meet down there, do the experience and hang out.
Then break into the Blink House, which
Yeah.
is apparently
Yeah.
no admitters.
Yeah, we can do a podcast live from there or something. But
Yeah, I don't know if it's still there, but the graffiti on the wall, does it say
duck, yeah.
Yeah, it was there for ages after they finished filming.
Right.
I don't know if it's still there, whether they've preserved it or if it's been done up. But yeah,
Okay.
so we could go down and have a look.
And there's another award as well, same story. Real SFX, who are the guys who do all the effect stuff for the show still. They've been awarded as best creative company in the city. Apparently. Yeah, so they've done the effects since 2006. And yeah, they went up against some other companies there. But yeah, so
That was set up by Danny Hargreaves. He's a bit of a legend, Danny, actually. I remember seeing him when we used to have good old Doctor Who Confidential. He was very often on there.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a legend, Danny. And they have done some great work, haven't they, when you think back?
Yeah. Doctor Who Confidential, is that going to come back at some point?
Well, they do.
think-
What's the new one that they did for Series 8? That new
Yeah.
10-minute thing.
Yeah, it
was
didn't
a
really.
sort of bit of a confidential.
Yeah, because I really liked watching through a lot of those old Confidentials episodes. They were really good.
Yeah, I did. I used to love seeing Russell chatting about what his ideas were and stuff, and all the team. But yeah, the one they did last time was kind of a sort of confidential cut down of a cut down, wasn't it? It's just it's just a little 10-minute slicer behind the scenes, which didn't really give you anything.
Yeah, so let's bring back Confidential.
Oh, I'd love to. Mind you, BBC Three's sadly on the way out, so probably not.
Yeah,
But there's always BBC Two.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Yeah, now that Top Gear's going,
that's right.
there could be room for some more stuff.
Yeah, that would be good. I'd like to see it come back.
Yeah.
And then we could get some more, they can put it on the DVD so we can get some better extras.
It wouldn't be a bad thing.
No, it wouldn't. So, yeah, good award.
Good awards. Well done, everyone. No more news to go through. Before we get on to our review of Rose, just because we didn't mention it at the beginning, we are going to announce the winner of the competition later on.
Oh yes, exciting times! Can't believe it. When we announced this, was it? It was over a month ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I remember thinking, yeah, we've got weeks leading up to this, and I can't believe it's already rolled round. So very exciting. Somebody today, hopefully listening to this podcast, is going to be winning all that gear.
Yeah, it's going to be cool.
Amazing. So yeah, we'll announce that later, won't we?
Yes. In the meantime, we got something coming up. It's our normal review, but what is it, Adam?
Well, obviously, there's only one thing we could possibly review today, isn't there? On the 10th anniversary of the Doctor coming back to our TV screens, at last, we're reviewing Rose.
Nesting consciousness? Easy.
You were useless in there. You'd be dead if it wasn't for me.
Yes, I would. Thank you. Right then, I'll be off. Unless, I don't know, you could come with me. This box isn't just a London Opera, you know, it goes anywhere in the universe, free of charge.
Don't. He's an alien, he's a thing.
He's not invited. What do you think? You could stay here, fill your life with work and food and sleep, or you could go, anywhere.
Is it always this dangerous?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I've got to go and find my mum, and someone's got to look after this stupid lamp. So.
Okay. See you around. By the way, did I mention it also travels in time?
Wow.
Wowzers.
Yeah, gosh, I love it.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
So, review stuff, I mean, this is kind of weird, actually, because I remember speaking about Rose on episode 1 of the podcast.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So it's really cool to revisit and talk about it with you, because I'm interested to hear on your thoughts on this one, because it's another one that we've chosen which doesn't divide opinion as much as some of the other episodes that we've reviewed.
No,
but there are some kind of different thoughts around it, and I think now that kind of time has gone by and people have watched it obviously many times and had a chance to really digest it and put their own thoughts on it. What do we think about, before we get into the actual episode, what do we think about Doctor Who coming back at this time in 2005? It's kind of a general consensus that it was bang on perfect timing, really. Do you kind of agree with that?
I think I do. Yeah, because we'd had the TV movie, which I enjoyed, but it didn't hit all the sort of right marks. And obviously then we had sort of was it 9 years between this and then? And I do think it was right. I think there was a sort of in between time when we just kind of figured it was really gone and it wouldn't come back. But it needed the right team behind it, and I do truly believe that the right team were found. I think Russell, did a fantastic job. Julie Gardner, Phil Constant, it's a fantastic team that were really, really invested in making this the best comeback they could possibly give. And it's a very important episode, but it's also a very difficult one because, if you think about it, you can imagine the sort of pressure they were under. They got to appeal to fans.
Yeah.
They're bringing back such an important program. They've got to bring in new viewers to make it a success so that it gets commissioned for a second series, because that wasn't a given when the first series went out. There was an enormous amount of pressure, and they've got to make it a fun, enjoyable episode to watch. And I have to say, I truly believe they succeeded.
Yes, absolutely.
And not just because it went on to be really, really popular. I just mean as an episode itself. It's a very sort of simple episode. It's not hard to follow. And that's a plus. Do you know what I mean? It's a very easy, watchable episode that gives you all the little pointers and introduces you to the Doctor again in a very sort of accessible way. I just think they did a great job. And I do think the time was right. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I think when we reviewed Survival last week, I didn't get shot down as much as I thought I was going to be, actually. I didn't have to board the windows up or travel around in an armoured car or anything. So,
although I think Harry Westergaard might want to have a chat with you at some point. But yeah,
So I said on that review that I thought it was right for them to stop the show at that time.
Yeah,
and I think it's one of those things where if they would have carried on and just kept going, I honestly believe that we wouldn't have the show that we have today, because it needed that really kind of lengthy, and don't get me wrong, not too long, but it needed that real length of time where it can just be, put to bed a little bit. And then, like you say, a team of people put together who weren't involved at all before. Because I think if they would have carried on going with it, there would have been, certain people who would have just carried on working on it.
Yeah.
And would have just stuck around. And while that might not have been the end of the world, I think it just needed a completely fresh, new team of people, like you say. And they, I thought the timing was great, because I think if you bring it out too early, you've got that not rushed kind of feeling to it, but you've got that kind of there wasn't too much going on around the movie, was there? That kind of came and went.
Yeah.
So you couldn't really, if you were brought it out too soon after the movie, you've got comparisons going on there, which is a bit unjust. But then if you leave it too late, then people just, it really does start to sink into like the back cupboards of people's mind. So I do think the timing was bang on for this, and I completely agree with you that like Russell T Davies and all those guys. When you watch like the special features on the DVDs now from that first series, you can see just how desperate they are to make it as best as it can be. There's the pressure is one thing, that's for sure, but the passion that they've got for the program and the characters, and they just you can see that it's like it's been a real kind of not an uphill battle, but a real convincing of minds, let's say, because the BBC, the top bods and the suits at the BBC, they're not always the kindest of people where it concerns shows like this, so they really had a job to get under their noses and make it good.
No, exactly, because I mean, the sort of top brass at the BBC, they're not emotionally involved in Doctor Who the way that the people who make it are. They're probably, I assume, all about the sort of ratings and the facts and the figures. It's all very sort of, no, I don't mean calculated in a nasty way, but you know what I mean? It's all very black and white to them. Either something's a success or not. They're not really too bothered about, the sort of ins and outs of it leading up to that.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to accept, really, that Doctor Who should ever leave our TV screens. I mean, I think if I put myself back in survival, I'd never want Doctor Who to leave our TV screens. But I have to acknowledge that you're right. If it hadn't have had a break, then we definitely wouldn't have got the show we've got today. It'd be interesting to see what would happen to the show, and I have a feeling that you're right, that it really probably would have disappeared for quite some time if it had carried on. And it's quite hard for me to accept that, but I do think it needed a break. I'm glad it came back. I'd never want it to vanish forever, ever. But
never. No.
But I think you're right. I think it needed a rest, and it needed to sort of reevaluate for a modern audience. And this definitely came back in style and brought it right back into the mainstream.
Absolutely.
And all the press were behind it. I mean, I remember the TV movie. I remember there were a couple of sort of adverts on the TV for it, but no buzz at all. Whereas when this was announced, and I think maybe because Russell T Davies was behind it, because he was sort of kind of known for Queer as Folk at the time, I think, and that was sort of the writer of Queer as Folk's writing Doctor Who. How's that going to work? And all this, I remember all that sort of stuff and in the press and the papers. And I think because he was behind it, it got so much more publicity. I mean, I can remember it being announced on the radio and all this sort of thing. There was quite a buzz when it came back, which I don't remember any of that for the TV movie. It was just kind of a buzz within fandom for the TV movie. Yeah. It wasn't like the big announcement when this was announced.
Mm-hmm. No, I read you. It's and it's also there was quite a big interview, wasn't there, when Chris Eccleston was on the Jonathan Ross show.
Yeah,
that was like his one and only big kind of promo interview for the show.
I remember watching that. Yeah, I do remember watching it. I didn't realise it was his only one until I read that this morning, actually, because they were talking about when he was given his figure and his absolute shock and
That's right.
horror at this figure. I mean, I think that's the side of it Eccleston often says he didn't like. He didn't want to be a brand. He didn't want to be turned into a figure. And, I think that was one of the reasons he just kind of left when he did. But yeah, I do remember watching that when it went out and being really excited because I didn't know much about Christopher Eccleston at all. I don't think I'd really seen him in anything. I sort of remembered him in League of Gentlemen. I can't remember, but I really hadn't seen him in anything. So I was coming to his Doctor quite cold, and I remember seeing him on Jonathan Ross and thinking he came across quite well. He was quite guarded. He always is in interviews. But I remember thinking that there was definitely something about him that I was really excited to see his Doctor. Do you know what I mean? I thought, he's got a sort of a bluntness. He's got a kind of warmth. I was really, really sort of looking forward to seeing this episode. And they showed some clips as well. I remember like the Slovene, and they showed all these clips from the forthcoming episode. And I think they might have showed the Big Ben beard smash. And I remember thinking, wow, this is going to be amazing. I can't wait for this series to air. Yeah, but it was interesting that he only did that one interview, because I don't know if that was whose decision that was, or whether other people did interviews, but you'd have thought he'd have been on lots of shows. I mean, nowadays they would, wouldn't they? They'd be on
all over. Yeah,
they'd be all over it. Yeah.
Yeah. Strangely enough, I remember watching that Jonathan Ross show.
You do?
Yeah, I remember watching that because I used to watch that show.
Yeah.
At the time, so I do not in too much detail, but I remember Chris Eccleston being on there and having his little figure. It was kind of, because if you think about it now, they go on a world tour. They not just go on, TV shows and being interviewed. They go around and do a whole stage production of it. So
yeah, that's right.
I can imagine Chris absolutely hating having to do that if he was, if that was part of the plan back then.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you think what it's gone on to be, I mean, it's a bit like when they had the regeneration from 9 to 10 and all that. I mean, it is such a big deal now. We actually have shows dedicated to it, whereas back then it was a very subtle affair. And in some ways, it's quite nice. I mean, it was a really nice little surprise when he regenerated. It's kind of a shame. I don't know. It's a two-way thing, because I love the build up to the announcement of the Doctor. I love all that, but it is quite nice when they manage to sneak in little surprises like that.
Yeah, it's cool. So moving on to the show, the episode, itself, because we've just recorded our commentary.
Yes,
for this, haven't we? So we're fresh. We know all the ins and outs and details and stuff. And I'm going to say off the bat, I thought I'm going to agree with you 100% that this was a really easy watch, an enjoyable watch. And,
it zooms along at a great pace, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it really does.
And one of the things that we spoke about in the commentary is that it doesn't. I really like the way they handled bringing the Doctor back, because they did it in such a way where he wasn't. They didn't have to set up the entire story to explain to fans who hadn't seen the show before who the Doctor was and why he was there, and what is a sonic screwdriver and what is a TARDIS. They didn't have to, or they felt they didn't have to do all that. And which was really cool, because for fans of the show already who'd been watching it for years and years, it was like nothing had ever really I mean, obviously the style of the show had changed, and and the pacing and how it was made, all that stuff's different, but the essence of the show is no different to how it was in the classic years. So for fans of the show who had already been fans all their lives and watched it from years ago, they really cool. And it was just great that it was so subtly done, and appealed to both people, because I think you said, Adam, that they really had to strike a good balance between appealing to current fans of the show and also grabbing new fans who hadn't seen it before.
Yeah, I think it would have been so easy to get this episode wrong. I don't know how difficult it was for Russell to write, but I can only imagine it was quite hard, because you're right, he's bringing the show back. It's got enormous publicity. Not only has he got to get the casting right, and I remember there were grumbles about Billie Piper when she was announced, and yet she went on to be brilliant. I think in the first series anyway, she didn't sort of I don't know, she did deteriorate a little bit as the series went on, I feel, but she was great in the first series, and I think she was great casting. I think Chris was great casting as well, but I think you're right. He managed to get a good balance between what needed to be in there for the casual viewer and what needed to be in there for the fans to so that they sat there and thought, yes, it is the same show, but it has been brought up for a modern audience. So I think they pitched it really well. I think it could have, this could so easily have been a disaster in the wrong hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it is credit to Russell, no matter what you think of his writing style or whatever. I think it's, this episode is a real credit to him, because it's a very simple story. It's very easy to watch. You don't have to sort of it's not too taxing on the brain. It just gives you all the little pointers you need to who the Doctor is and what he does, and that's it, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it does leave you wanting more. That's the thing. Like when they go off together, you're like, right, we're you have one great adventure with them together, but then they go off in the TARDIS at the end, and they're off on all these great adventures, and I definitely couldn't wait for next week when it ended. I was thinking, wow, brilliant.
That was cool. And just to kind of reinforce, what I was saying about appealing to current fans, but new fans as well. I really like the fact that they used the Autons and the Nestene consciousness in this, because that is something that's only been used a couple of times from the classic years. So it's not one of the famous monsters from Who. They didn't kick off straight away with with Cybermen, or
Daleks. The obvious,
the obvious ones. Yeah, they kept something that was familiar to classic fans, but was also just something cool to people who'd never seen it before, and hadn't seen Spearhead from Space or anything like that. It was just cool that there was like these shop mannequins coming to life and had that kind of creepy vibe to it, and like some cool action sequences as well. And I thought that was really cool. That's quite a brave decision by Russell T Davies, because I'd imagine that some of the top bods at the BBC would have been like, well, we need to have a real impact when we bring the show back, so it needs to come out all guns blazing. And I can only imagine some of the conversations between him and some of the execs at the BBC saying, no, we should build up to that, and we shouldn't just blow our stack immediately and all that stuff. So a lot of respect for Russell T Davies for doing that, for kind of building up to the big reveals of those classic monsters, and just going in with something light, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the Autons work really well. I mean, I know some people say they're a bit underused, but I think it's just right. They're just there to help you get introduced to the Doctor. I think they work brilliantly, actually.
Yeah.
Just enough. I think that the chemistry between Eccleston and Billy Piper is great as well. I'm surprised, actually, rewatching it again, because it has been a while since I rewatched this. And having watched it again, I'm surprised how well they click immediately. It doesn't feel awkward at all. It's I don't know where they filmed this in the production, but they really do gel incredibly well.
They do,
I think.
It's one of those things where because I think we've mentioned this a couple of times already, and we'll probably mention it a few more times, but it is one of those things that could have gone horribly wrong. Do you know what I mean? It's if the Doctor and the companion didn't hit it off immediately, and I don't mean as a couple or anything like that. I mean like their on-screen chemistry and the actors themselves. If those two didn't run with it and gel, like you say, as much as they did, that could have been a disaster. That could have been, because obviously they're the stars of the show, and they need to build that foundation for all the stuff that was going to come afterwards.
Exactly,
So,
yeah. I mean, the pressure on their shoulders as well. I mean, not just the writers, but yeah, you're right. The pressure to get to get the performance and the chemistry between the two must have been quite high as well. Yeah. Absolutely.
So Billy and Chris, they were pretty much really, really cool in my opinion in this episode. There wasn't anything for me to heavily complain about. I mean, it's kind of weird because you can't really be too critical, because Billy Piper I don't think she'd been in many.
Only a few things.
Yeah. And this was certainly a lot higher profile than what she'd done before.
Oh, massively.
And although Chris was, a fairly seasoned actor at this point, it was still kind of out of his comfort zone, I think. I don't think he'd been into this kind of role and this kind of TV before, this kind of aimed at kids as well as adults kind of thing. So,
no, not at all, actually. And I read this morning, and I don't know if this is true, I really hope someone can tell me, but I read this morning that because obviously him and Russell were close, because they made the drama The Second Coming together. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think Russell wanted him as the Doctor, but didn't ask him, and apparently Chris said to him, "Will you consider me for the role?" Now I don't know if that's true, but I'd like to think it is. I kind of like that idea. It doesn't fit with what we know about Chris, I know, but yeah, I think, you know, obviously him and Russell had quite a good working relationship despite whatever happened behind the scenes.
Yes, there is an interview that you can track down with Chris Eccleston. I think it was shortly after he'd finished filming, or near towards the end, but it's on YouTube somewhere if you do a search for it. But he did say that, you know, one of the things that kind of drew him to the show and appealed to him as the role was being able to act in a way that would be that good mix and balance. He wanted to appeal to like the kids who are watching the show, but you know, it's kind of like it's a classic kind of thing, like The Simpsons have done it very well for years, and you know, things where, and Pixar movies as well, where you appeal to kids, but there's loads of stuff in there as well for adults alike. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And it probably appealed to him because it was something different. I think he is one of those actors that, and again, this probably comes back to why he's so distant from the role. He likes to do different things, and it probably did appeal to him because he hadn't really done anything like this, you know, that appealed to like a family audience, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. And
you were talking about the regeneration as well, and obviously, like, there is a very tiny little scene in it where it's kind of referenced. And again, if you're not a fan of the show, it wouldn't detract from your enjoyment because you wouldn't be sat there thinking, what's he on about? But there is a tiny little mention about when he looks in the mirror and his ears and stuff, isn't he? And I kind of like it. You're not too sold on that, though, are you?
It depends on what your view is. I mean, before we had the Day of the Doctor and the whole 50th thing, before that, I was cool with it. You know, so this is more Stephen Moffat's fault than anything else. But it's only because, you know, after the War Doctor, John Hurt, you know, regenerates into Chris Eccleston, I kind of had this feeling that the Doctor would have gone off and done loads of stuff before we see him in this episode. And the only reason I say that, and there's probably no, you know, truth to that. This could be, you know, in terms of if we take out the timey-wimey aspect of it, you know, he could have turned up in this episode literally a week after regenerating from the War Doctor. But it just feels like he's gone off and done a load more things before we see him at this point. So him looking in the mirror and, you know, saying, oh, you know, the ears aren't, you know, it just feels like it was done correctly at that point in the show. But then when Stephen Moffat wrote that, you know, the whole War Doctor thing, and you show him regenerate, I'm not sure. I'm just not sure how it marries up. But I don't mind it. It's okay.
I hear you. I know what you mean.
Do you know what I mean? It's a cool little bit, though.
Yeah, I like it. I think because at the time I was desperate for there to be a reference to the fact. I think I wanted it confirmed. I knew it was the Doctor, but I wanted it confirmed.
Oh, okay.
So, because we always like to see a regeneration, and obviously when this aired, we hadn't. The last thing we'd seen was Paul McGann going off in the TARDIS, and then the next thing we've got Chris on the screen. So I wanted something to mar the two together at the time.
Right.
So I think that little reference did it for me. But you're right, probably at the time. What do we think of Jackie and Mickey?
Jackie and Mickey, well, I thought they were cast pretty well, you know.
I do.
Yeah, I think Jackie has some nice little sort of funny moments. She's like, I'm not sure if she's meant to be as much comic relief as she is in a lot of episodes, but I think she's cast pretty well. Don't get me wrong, I don't think she's the greatest of actors. You know, I'm going to put that out there. I don't think she's that amazing. Don't get me wrong, she's, you know, she's cool, you know, for something like this, but there are a few times where she's a bit kind of forced, I feel, like trying to play that kind of chavvy kind of, you know, London estate kind of single mum. You know, I get, you know, I get the whole thing, but, you know, she does play it a little bit forced sometimes, but
I think she's good with Billy, though. I think the mother-daughter relationship's good, and I also think she's good when she meets Rose's dad. What's he called? Tyler? Sam? No, that's Life on Mars. When she meets Rose's dad, anyway, I think they're great together. The sort of bickering, and they slip straight back into the sort of husband and wife.
Oh, Father's Day.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Oh no,
we are terrible with names.
I lost it. But yes, she's good when they're together as a family. I think she works well again with the humour. I like Mickey as well. I think Mickey's all right. You know, he's not bad.
Yeah, Mickey. I really like Noel Clarke. He plays this role fairly relaxed, I thought, from the start. Yeah, I didn't really get a vibe that he felt the pressure. as I'm sure he did, but I don't get that vibe when I'm watching these early episodes. That it looks like he's just having he's good fun with it, and
it's strange when he's taken over by the burping bin, isn't it? And
Well,
I'm going to go on record here and just say I love the burping bin.
I love the burping bin. There's nothing wrong with the burping bin.
The Auton burping bin.
It's cool.
But when he gets taken over and he's all plasticky and stuff, and he's doing that crazy talking and driving like a maniac, and takes Rose a long time to pick up on it, doesn't it? But I love the scene in the restaurant. I think that's really cool where he gets his head ripped off and all that. That's quite good, I think.
Yeah, and Mickey goes on to do good things, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. Yeah.
Yeah, and I quite like that. So the casting of those two, I think, is it's pretty spot on, really.
Yeah, I do, and I'll tell you, I must mention another bit of casting. I know he's not in it very much, but I love Clive, the geek who's like tracking the Doctor's every move and is sort of almost obsessed with finding out about the Doctor. And remind me of the actor's name again, Mark Benton, is it?
Mark Benton, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful little character actor, and I think he gives a great performance. I'd love to see more of him. I'm gutted that he gets killed at the end.
Yeah,
and even more so that it's in front of his wife and kids. It's horrible, but I really like his character. I wish the Doctor would go back and meet him before he gets killed, or goes back and saves him, because I really like him.
Yeah, we mentioned that when we were recording earlier, that he's such a great little character, and it's one of those things where I feel that he's got his little man cave pretty much, hasn't he? He's got this whole like years worth of research on the Doctor and stuff, and you can tell that he's kind of almost cracked it. He's almost to that point where maybe if he'd had another year or two, he probably would have bumped into the Doctor. Yes, because you can tell that he's on the verge of uncovering what's going on, and I feel that character's got a load of potential. Like you, I would have loved to have seen him pop up, further on down the line and be involved in some cool story, but or maybe
you've just hit the nail on the head. Actually, I'd love to have seen him meet the Doctor. It's only just occurred to me that it's a bit like when you sort of want to meet your favorite TV star. So that would be great, because you can imagine he'd be absolutely in awe of him.
Starstruck, yeah.
I'd love to see that. Oh, please go back and write that someone. That'd be brilliant. I really want Clive to meet him.
Yeah, because I think he's got this, because he's got so much research on the Doctor and he knows what's going on. I could almost see him kind of falling into the Torchwood area kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's and he's a great character. He's really funny, and he's got I love that scene where Rose turns up at the house and he's running through all the stuff that he's uncovered over the years, and he gets really into it. It's like he's really excited, you can tell that it's one of his life's passions, and a great little character.
Finally someone's going to listen to him. It's like, oh my goodness, another one. It's like a fan meeting another fan. Like Simon, that somebody else shares his passion, I think, or is interested. Is like you said, he's just a really warm, nice character, and I would like to have seen more. You're saying about nice scenes, actually. That's one of the great things about this episode. Is there's lots of nice little moments in it, and one of them that we must mention is that first little speech the Doctor has, where he lets go of Rose's hand near the beginning about the world spinning and this is who I am. That's a beautiful scene, and brilliantly acted by Chris and Billy. It's just a lovely, lovely scene. I love the fact that TARDIS is just in the background as well. It's just there, prominent in the picture. That's a great scene.
That's very cool. It's I think it's the first time within the episode that it really shows its seriousness about the character, because at that point we've had some kind of, light-hearted clown-like music, and it's been a bit of a run around, and not really much has happened in terms of that kind of overall Doctor Who, feel. And I think that's the first point in that episode where you really know what's that Russell T Davies is serious about it. I hope that makes sense. It's
No, it does. Yeah. I know what you mean. There are two other scenes that really stand out for me. The first one is where the Doctor is, the whole thing about lots of planets have a north, explaining his accent, and he's got his the London Eye behind his head, and he's saying, "Well, I can't." That scene is lovely, where she's just like, it's so obvious that that's the transmitter, and it's right behind him, and he's oblivious. That's brilliant. And the other scene I absolutely love is when we get to see, well, it's basically when Mickey's kicking off and they run out the back of the restaurant and the TARDIS is there, beautifully lit, and we're just dying to see inside, and they do it brilliantly, you know, with Billy running in and looking, you know, aghast.
Yeah.
And then we think we're going to see the inside and we don't, and she runs back out and then she goes back in, and we finally, when she bursts through that TARDIS, the TARDIS doors, and we finally see the inside of the TARDIS. What a moment. I mean, that's brilliant. And the TARDIS console looks brilliant. And it's just such a great scene. And again, Chris, the interaction between the Doctor and Rose, where he's, you know, saying it's okay to be shocked, take your time, you know, and when there's this thing going mental outside, you know, about to kill them, and they're just having this lovely little interaction. It is brilliant. Another great scene. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's, I think, you know, a lot of the episodes that Russell T Davies has written over the years, when he was showrunner, I think that he should be just so proud of this one.
I think so.
Because it all hinges on that, what we spoke earlier, it all hinges on, you know, this has to get it right. And there was so much risk involved that this could have just gone down as a flop, you know, and people wouldn't have been into it. So I think, you know, if I ever get to meet Russell at any point in the future, I will definitely mention that to him, that Rose was a real turning point for the show and for the character, and it's one of those things where I know it's very easy to say in hindsight, but you can't imagine anyone else writing it now. No. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure there would have been a handful of really good writers that would have done a good job, you know, a decent job, but you can tell that he's just such a fan of the classic stuff as well. He really loves the character in the show. So it's just written so well, and it's not one of the best, is it? Let's be honest. It's not one of the best episodes out of series one. However, it's I don't know. It's got something about it. It's just so, like you say, it's easy to watch. You don't have to concentrate too hard. It doesn't bombard you with you know, Doctor Who lore. It doesn't, you know, baffle you, and it's not timey-wimey. It's just a great character setup, and
I think it's not. Yeah, you're right. It's not the best in terms of story and that, but it's what it needed to be, I suppose, as an introductory episode. It's a bit like a pilot, I suppose. It's just bringing you in before we get into the, you know, the main sort of stories. You know, it's just an introduction, and it's a perfect introduction. Yeah, it's not the strongest story ever, but I think it's what it needed to be.
Absolutely, man.
You just saying about Russell, actually, I'd love to meet Russell T Davies, and I came so close. I was sat having a beer outside a bar on Old Compton Street. Oh gosh, years ago. I think Tennant was the Doctor, so it would have been around about then. And Russell, I'd been shopping. I'd been and bought. I'd got a massive bag load of Doctor Who figures, and I mean massive, because it was one where the figures all came with a little part of a robot, so you had to buy them all to make the robot. So I'd got this huge bag of figures. I'd just been in and bought a bottle of beer, and I was sat in this glorious sunshine outside this bar in Soho, and I saw Russell walk past me in his long grey coat, and he's really tall, and it was like a dream, because he walked past me and I clocked it was Russell, because he was wearing that grey coat that he always used to wear, that long one.
Yeah.
But I was sat there, I just bought a beer, and I'd got this huge bag of stuff, and I was just like, in the sort of 10 seconds it took me to sort of communicate in my brain what was going on, I was like, should I run after it? I really want to say hello, Russell, thank. By the time I'd done that, so I quickly sort of downed this beer, grabbed all my stuff, and I was like, right, where did he go? And for the next sort of 5-10 minutes, I just walked round and round, hoping that I would sort of bump into him. And I was trying to sort of gauge. I was thinking, well, if he went down that road and I cut around this one, I might sort of see him coming towards it. Oh, it's just, but it was so close. And I just would have loved to have met him and said, you know, I'm so grateful for you bringing back, you know, this show, and look at all this stuff that I've just bought, because this is, you know, this just to show what a big fan I am. You know what I mean? It just would have been comical that I'd got all these Doctor Who figures. He probably would have just laughed, and I'd have just loved to have met him. But that's how close I came. He literally walked past me, but I couldn't find him. It was like he disappeared into thin air, but it was 100% Russell T Davies. Yeah. So I've come very close, and one day I'm sure I will, because he always comes across as such a nice guy. I'd love to meet him.
We got it in there.
What?
One day.
Oh yeah, didn't even realise.
One day.
One day.
Yeah. So there's actually a really cool book, isn't there? That it's called The Writer's Tale.
Yes, have you got it?
Yes. Well, I've got the second edition.
Yeah.
And that's a really good account. It's basically a guy that's basically having an email conversation with Russell over, I think it's like a year and a half or something like that.
Yeah.
And like the insight you get into, Russell's thoughts on the show and what he plans to write and characters that he came up with and didn't make it. And it's just, if you haven't read that book, it's a cracking read.
He's brimming with ideas, isn't he?
Yeah. It's a really kind of a visual kind of writer as well. When he's writing, one of the things that I got from that book was when he's writing an episode or a series of episodes, he thinks about the entire thing. He doesn't just think about a conversation between the Doctor and the companion. He thinks about, will it be in the TARDIS or will it be on a set? So we have to consider budget for that. And will it include a special effect? And do we have to do stuff like that? He kind of visualizes the entire process in his mind. So amazing guy. If you haven't read that book, check it out. It's really good.
I think one of the things he's really good at is writing people we care about as well, actually, because, we've got Clive, who's hardly in it, but we, it's really sad when he dies. We've got Mickey and Jackie, who obviously when you first watch this episode, we've only just met them, but I instantly warm towards them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's just good at writing people that you instantly connect with and care about, I think, Russell.
Yes. Yeah. I think quite a few people have said that,
Yeah.
His character, and if you look at some of the other shows that Russell has written for as well, that's probably his strongest point, isn't it? It's him writing for people who, just the interaction between people and just making them likable, and and buying into their story. Great stuff.
Absolutely.
And
so
the Rose's dad, Pete.
Oh, Pete, that's
Pete
it.
Tyler, yeah.
I couldn't get Sam Tyler out of my head because I've just finished watching Life on Mars. I just couldn't get Sam Tyler out of my head. Pete Tyler, of course, and I really like Pete Tyler. And we'll have to review Father's Day at some point because that's a good one.
Yeah. So okay, so I think we've gushed over.
Yeah.
Bringing Who back and Russell T Davies and Chris Eccleston stuff for long enough. Let's get to our review score.
Let's do it.
Is it? I think who's going first this week? I think it might be me.
It's you this week.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give this an 8.
Right. Out of 10.
8 out of 10, yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly what I've put. 8 out of 10. I've written
again.
I think it's exactly what it needed to be, mate. I really do. Like you said, maybe not the strongest story. It didn't need to be. It just needed to bring Doctor Who back in style and give us a good introduction to it. And I think that's what it does. It was difficult for me to score, actually.
Yeah, me too.
I really did.
Yeah.
But I think 8 out of 10 is perfect because it's just an enjoyable episode. And there's loads of great moments in it. So yeah, 8 out of 10 for me as well.
Yeah, and the reason why I gave it 8 is because similar thoughts to you. It needed to be, current and modern, and it did its job perfectly for that. But it was judged on its own merits.
Yeah.
So there wasn't any huge, big story arc about cracks in the wall or anything like that. It was just, a fresh episode. It didn't link to anything at that point. The only thing we mentioned that got mentioned was the Time War and the Shadow Proclamation, which obviously pop up, at various times during the newer Who stuff. But it was literally a single episode that wasn't linked to anything else. So to judge it on its own merits, it's and Chris was brilliant. Billy was great. The story was was cool. There's nothing to complain about really.
No, there really isn't.
You can't really bash it much. So
and I just must say, I love the fact they used the original sound effects as well. For the Auton guns, because just these little simple things make it tie it in with the classic show. It makes it feel like the same program. So they could have used a new laser. I love the fact they've used the classic Auton gun sound effect. I love the fact that they kept the TARDIS sound effect. It may sound silly, but that dematerialization and sound and stuff is really important. And again, they might have been tempted, I don't know, maybe it's in the book, they might have been tempted to have tried something new or tweaked it or whatever, but it's exactly as it's always been. And I think that's important. I love the fact it did that. And I like the theme. The theme's much simpler having watched this again. It does sound much more like the classic era. So yeah, some nice little tie-ins with the classic show, but still making it for a modern audience. So yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, cool. Let's jump on to our our social stuff and see what our listeners had to say.
Over to the social media.
Over to social. I'm not going to say much about Twitter. There was only a couple, and I can't find them, but it got lost in a sea of entries for the competition. So
okay,
let's jump onto Facebook. But thank you anyway for jumping on Twitter. Don't not do that in the past. Just that my laziness has prevented me from finding them. But
they're lost in the vortex for now.
Yes, for now. So on Facebook, on the official page, Jeff Waddle here, he says...
hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. He's put... actually, no, he just basically...
Are you pronouncing his name right, by the way?
Jeff Waddle.
Because this is your last chance.
I'm hoping so. Jeff Waddle, yeah. He actually just warned you about getting told off for using NU when using Nuhu.
Yeah, I know.
Which is a bugbear of mine, but... yeah.
Thing is, I'm one of these people, the more people tell me not to do it, the more I will. But yeah, I know. That did make me laugh, Jeff, actually, your comment.
Yeah. Devin Baker, good use of the Autons were... good use of the Autons, but still... good the Autons are wasted, but still great. 7 out of 10. Stu Gee. Hi, Stu. It's the perfect story to introduce a newer viewer to the show. There's a lot of running around, but it does the job. It's set out to do admirably. Oh, God.
He's had a few beers, ladies and gentlemen.
Admirably, yes.
Yeah.
Matt over at Who EdX.
Hello, Matt.
Hi, Matt. Not the best episode ever, but it certainly did its job very well. Simple, subtle story. It was easy for every fan to follow. Introduced everything about the Doctor to a new audience and made the Doctor a mystery all over again. That's a good point.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the episode that got me hooked on Who Forever. A brilliant start to the reboot. 7 out of 10. Callum Johnston.
Hello, Callum.
Hello, Callum. He says, now when I go back through this episode, I just remember it being really good and a classic, but I've finished rewatching it and it doesn't really hold up as much as I thought it would. He's gone on to say, nice to meet you, Rose. Run for Your Life was a great and fantastic, great way to start the new era of Doctor Who. 7 out of 10. Mm-hmm. Daniel Seligman. He's put pretty good, great writing, great acting, and some great moments. Now, about that burping bin. He's given it 8.5. Good score.
Right, okay.
Yep.
Good
Eugene Glover, exciting times. I watched the leaked episode about the same day my son was born. What? Whoa. He said, life was very much about new possibilities when I first saw it. He said, as I watched it, he thought, oh, the pacing's wrong. Over-mixed music. Rose's mum is annoying. I'm glad Rose will be leaving her behind forever. Blah, blah, blah. He goes on to say, I have given it a 9 out of 10 on the day I saw it. Now with hindsight and what was to come, 6.5, maybe a 7. Solid, respectable.
Okay.
Cheers, Eugene. Stuart Stockwin. I absolutely love this episode. Everything in there for me. Explosions, impressive CG, great music like the Westminster Bridge and Ninth theme. And a bit of mystery around the Doctor. I like how they brought back the Autons from the classic era. Find it slightly slow in parts. And I think some scenes are only in there just for trailers, like the Clive scene. It brought Doctor Who back with a bang, 8 out of 10.
Okay.
Ryan Anthony, just the last one. I've always really enjoyed this story. It was perfect for the revival, having a decent plot, and RTD really did pick the right man for the job at the time to play the Doctor.
Yeah.
I still have to appreciate, after all, this was Doctor Who, wouldn't be in my life. However, since this was 10 years ago, I do find this one a bit dated, since there's been 7 series after it. But overall enjoyable, 7 out of 10.
Fair enough.
Great stuff, guys.
So, what have we got? Robert Lithgow. He says the story is very meh when compared to the 11th Hour or Deep Breath and even the Christmas Invasion, and the story wasn't up to much either. But it brought the show back perfectly, and that's what counts, so I'll say 6 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to say I enjoy this one very much compared to those. Right, Christopher Law, he says, being the first episode I ever watched, it must have done something right to keep me loving the show for the past 10 years. Eccleston is very Doctor, and it's such a shame he wants nothing more to do with Who anymore. It's important what Christopher mentions there, because this did bring the show to a whole new audience who probably never even heard of Doctor Who before, so it was important. David Bear Kenyon. He says he
Hi, Dave.
Hello, David. He absolutely adored it. How exciting was it to have New Who again? And Russell did it justice. Eccleston was amazing and Piper a fantastic companion. And I loved that we had a familiar monster with the Autons. Fantastic. Yeah, I agree with you, Devin.
Yeah.
Now, who's this? Andy Frankham-Allen. That sounds
that
familiar.
guy?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Don't know. He's got a drawing as a profile picture, so I don't believe it's a real person. But I remember feeling absolutely knackered by the end of it. It was rushed. It rushed by at such a pace. It was Doctor Who unlike any Doctor Who before it. It was fresh, new, relevant, and to coin a phrase, fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yes, fantastic. Thanks, Andy. Kieran Knight. The Doctor's turn of the Earth speech in that scene was enough to get me hooked on this strange show, which I still love today. And Chris just rises to the occasion. Clive is a great character, and his fate is very sad. Shame it's sort of a remake of Spearhead and Terror. And he says he's looking forward to the podcast. So thank you, Kieran.
Okay.
Quick one from Jamie Robertson. He says, brilliant comeback. Everything I hoped it would be. And finally, Harry Westergaard, who I mentioned earlier, he very unimpressed with your score for Survival. He was.
Oh dear. Yeah.
Oh no, Harry's great, but he says a good episode to bring it back, not a bad episode, and Chris is good, but the plot isn't very original. It's pretty much just a remake of Spearhead from Space. Yeah, but some time had passed between then and now, so I can overlook that. So overall, I think people agree as a sort of introductory episode, it does a pretty decent job.
Yeah, I get the feeling that if this was plonked in the middle of the series, it probably would have got scored a bit lower.
Oh, yeah.
But I think people appreciate the fact that it had a job to do. And considering the show is still on, it did that job perfectly.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was Rose.
8 out of 10 for Rose.
8 out of 10. Yeah.
So before we close the show, let's announce the winner of our comp.
Gosh, exciting times. So
yeah, this was it was kind of weird to put this competition together at first, because I remember you and I speaking and saying, I want to do a giveaway. You're like, okay, so what should we do? And I said, well, we can cobble together a few things. We can, we can purchase a few things to give away, and we can approach some people and stuff like that. So we've kind of done half and half that. But I really want to say, before I announce the winner, a big thank you to Lavarzi for giving us the 4th Doctor replica scarf, and Big Finish for the Dark Eyes 4 box set.
Yeah.
Because they probably, they could have easily turned around and went, well, no, who are you, sort of thing. So that's really cool. So thank you to those guys. And so we've had loads and loads of entrants, and it's really helped us kind of expand our social reach, if you like, because loads of you, and I mean like literally loads of you, like over 100, have jumped on Twitter and retweeted and used the hashtag and stuff like that. And as a result of that, we've got a load of followers. So we're now talking to a lot more Who fans, which is really cool. We've met some really cool people via Twitter and on Facebook as well. You guys have jumped on there and posted, so that's really cool. So thank you very much for everyone that's entered. That's really cool. But we do have to pick a winner.
Yes.
And we've got the randomizer queued up.
And it has been random as well. Like, it's been totally random. It's just been picked.
Yes. And it's kind of difficult to do that because we have some very hardcore fans of the podcast who will speak to us every day and, say hi and retweet everything. So unfortunately, we can't give it away for that reason. Has to be completely random, otherwise that'd be a pointless thing, and it would kind of dilute the idea of having a random competition.
That's right.
So it is completely random. I've got the little app and stuff queued up now, and I think this deserves a drum roll.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah. So the winner of our first giveaway is Will Lloyd.
Will Lloyd.
Will Lloyd. His Twitter name is @WillLloyd_2000.
Wow. Well, congratulations, Will. You've won some great stuff.
Congrats, buddy. So we've got you on Twitter. You follow us and we follow you. So we will be in touch in the next day, and within 24 hours, I guess. We'll send you a DM and get your T-shirt size, find out your address, and very soon all that stuff will be on its way.
Yeah, that's it. Will, if you would, please send us please tweet us a picture when you get all your stuff of you wearing the scarf and drinking from the mug and
The t-shirt
listening to
on.
the podcast with the t-shirt on. Yeah, just get it all on. Reading your Forgotten Son book. Just have it all, mate. I would love to see a picture of you with all your prizes that you've just won, and congratulations.
Yeah, congrats, man. It's cool.
Yeah, I wanted to keep it all. I'll tell you now.
Me too. It's going to be very difficult for me to put this stuff in the box and send it.
Yeah.
I must
But
admit.
we will.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
We're not bad.
No.
We're not bad.
Well
Yeah, so-
done. Brilliant.
Well done, mate. Yeah, I think that is now going to close for episode 35.
Yeah.
That was fun.
It was fun. I just want to say before we close out, to all the Doctor Who fans out there, whatever you're doing to celebrate 10 years of Doctor Who being back on screen, have a fantastic time.
Yes, I'm assuming there's going to be lots of people digging out the Series 1 box sets
Yeah.
and sticking it on and having a trip down memory lane to the Ninth Doctor.
There's loads of stuff over the internet. I think it's brilliant. Or the BBC might not be doing much, but the fans are it's everywhere. It's all over social media, all over the internet. So it's great to see fans coming together and just having fun and celebrating it. So enjoy it, guys.
Enjoy. Good times. It's been a great 10 years, hasn't it?
It's been brilliant.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it just continues and gets bigger and bigger. And if it can convert me into a hardcore fan and start up a podcast and stuff, then it must be doing its job as a show.
Definitely.
It must be doing something right. So it's all good. So thank you very much again for sending in your thoughts on Rose. It was really cool. And look out for our commentary. That's going to land early next week.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Almost forgot about that. Yeah. Commentary of Rose. It's a good one. I enjoyed doing it. I really enjoyed watching it and going through it with you. So check that out next week, is it?
Next week, yeah. It's probably going to go out on Tuesday. Tuesday next week.
Great.
Yeah, that's going to be cool. Well done to Will Lloyd, nabbing yourself a cool bunch of Doctor Who goodies.
Yeah. Well
That's
done,
pretty
Will.
cool. Next week, we've got a good one, I think. I think this is going to be another cool one to thrash through.
Yeah.
Next week, we've got Mark of the Rani.
Mark of the Rani. Yeah. Colin Baker. Been a while, isn't it, since we've looked at any Colin?
It has, yeah. We're going to rewind back a bit, go back to the classic years,
Yeah.
and check out Colin.
I'm looking forward to that. So, yeah, give us your views. We'll put a picture up as always. Give us your views on Mark of the Rani, which will be next week.
Yes, which I've still got to watch. I have it downstairs ready and waiting to put in the into the player.
I haven't
shall
watched it
enjoy
for a
that.
long time, so I shall give that another watch next week before we record. So, yeah,
Cool.
be good.
So I guess it's just fitting to say happy 10th birthday to newer Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Happy
Choose your
fir-
words carefully.
Yeah. Happy first birthday to us.
Yeah.
Many good times ahead. So until next week, my name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And Alonzi!
Alonzi!